Hey everyone, and today we're diving into one of the most action-packed and fascinating books in the New Testament, the Book of Acts. This book is like the sequel to the Gospels, picking up where they left off and taking us on a wild ride through the early church's history. The Book of Acts in the King James Version, with its poetic language and vivid imagery, provides an especially compelling account of this pivotal period. We're going to unearth 10 things about the Book of Acts that you might not know. Facts and stories that add new layers of meaning and understanding to this often overlooked book. Okay, so first things first, who actually wrote the Book of Acts? Most scholars agree that it was written by the same person who wrote the Gospel of Luke, a man named Luke. Luke, my friends, was a fascinating dude. He was a physician, which in those days meant he was a pretty learned fellow. But more importantly for us, he was a meticulous historian. In the very first verse of Acts, he addresses someone named Theophilus, and refers to a former treatise. This former treatise is believed to be the Gospel of Luke. This connection is super important because it gives us insight into Luke's purpose for writing both books. To truly appreciate the Book of Acts, we need to understand the world in which it was written. Imagine a world where the Roman Empire was at its peak, where emperors were worshipped as gods, and where different cultures and religions were constantly bumping up against each other. This was the world of the early Christians. They were a small and often persecuted group trying to spread a message that was radically countercultural. The Book of Acts was written during a time of great change and upheaval. Despite these challenges, the early church not only survived but thrived, spreading like wildfire across the Roman Empire. It's a testament to the power of their message and the unwavering faith of those who carried it. One of the most important themes in the Book of Acts is the role of the Holy Spirit. From the very beginning, with the events of Pentecost, the Holy Spirit is the driving force behind the actions of the disciples. The Holy Spirit empowers the disciples to perform miracles, to speak in other languages, and to boldly proclaim the gospel even in the face of danger. The Holy Spirit guides the early church, leading them to new places and new people. It's like the Holy Spirit is this invisible hand, shaping the course of events and pushing the early church forward. And that's one of the things that makes the Book of Acts so exciting. It's a reminder that we're not alone in our faith journey. We can't talk about the Holy Spirit without talking about Pentecost, the event that kicked off the early church with a bang. Imagine this, a group of Jesus' followers are gathered together in Jerusalem, when suddenly, the sound of a violent wind fills the entire house. Then, tongues of fire appear over each of their heads and they begin to speak in other languages they've never even learned. It's a scene that's both awe-inspiring and a little bit terrifying. Pentecost wasn't just some random supernatural event. It was the fulfillment of Jesus' promise to send the Holy Spirit. It was the moment when the disciples were empowered to carry on Jesus' mission and to spread the gospel to the ends of the earth. Pentecost is a reminder that the gospel is for everyone, regardless of language, culture, or background. It's a message that transcends borders and barriers, uniting people under the banner of Jesus Christ. Alright, let's talk about Paul, the rock star of the early church. Paul, formerly known as Saul, was a Jewish Pharisee who was initially a fierce persecutor of Christians, but then he had a life-changing encounter with the risen Christ on the road to Damascus. This encounter transformed Paul from a persecutor of Christians to one of their most passionate advocates. He embarked on 3 extensive missionary journeys throughout the Roman Empire, spreading the gospel, establishing churches, and writing letters that would become part of the New Testament. Paul's journeys were fraught with danger, hardship, and opposition. He was beaten, imprisoned, shipwrecked, and constantly harassed by both Roman authorities and his fellow Jews. But through it all, Paul remained undeterred, driven by his unwavering faith and his commitment to spreading the gospel. His unwavering faith, his tireless efforts, and his willingness to endure hardship for the sake of the gospel make him one of the most inspiring figures in all of Christian history. We can't talk about Paul without talking about his dramatic conversion experience. Imagine this. Saul, a devout Pharisee, is on his way to Damascus to persecute Christians when suddenly, a blinding light flashes from heaven. He falls to the ground, blinded, and hears a voice saying, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" This encounter with the risen Christ completely transforms Saul's life. He repents of his former ways, is baptized, and becomes known as Paul, one of the most influential figures in the early church. Paul's conversion is a powerful reminder that God's grace can reach even the most hardened of hearts. His conversion is a testament to the power of the gospel to break down barriers and to unite people from all backgrounds. As the early church grew and spread, a big question arose. Do Gentile converts to Christianity need to follow all the Jewish laws and customs like circumcision? This wasn't just an abstract theological debate, it had real-world implications for the unity and the future of the church. So the leaders of the early church gathered in Jerusalem for what we now call the Council of Jerusalem. After much debate and prayer, the council came to a decision. Gentile Christians did not need to be circumcised or follow all the Jewish dietary laws. This decision was a pivotal moment in the history of the church, for it affirmed that salvation was through faith in Jesus Christ alone, not through adherence to the Mosaic law. The Council of Jerusalem was a model of how the church could address disagreements and maintain unity in the midst of diversity. It's a reminder that unity doesn't require uniformity, and that it's possible to disagree respectfully while remaining committed to the gospel and to one another. The book of Acts is chock full of miracles, from healings to deliverances to resurrections. These miracles weren't just random displays of power, they were signs pointing to the reality of Jesus' resurrection and the power of the gospel. Think about the time Peter healed a lame beggar at the temple gate, or when Paul was bitten by a venomous snake but shook it off without any ill effects. The miracles in Acts served several purposes. They authenticated the message of the gospel, showing that the disciples were empowered by God. They drew people to Jesus, as people were naturally drawn to the miraculous. The miracles in Acts remind us that we serve a God who is still in the business of doing the impossible. The book of Acts isn't just about action, it's also about words. Throughout the book, we find powerful speeches and sermons delivered by the apostles and other early church leaders. These speeches weren't just dry theological lectures, they were passionate proclamations of the gospel, filled with conviction, eloquence, and the power of the Holy Spirit. Think about Peter's sermon on the day of Pentecost, which led to the conversion of thousands. Or Paul's sermon at the Areopagus in Athens, where he engaged with Greek philosophers, using their own cultural context to point them to the one true God. The speeches and sermons in Acts provide us with a model for how to share our faith effectively. They teach us to be bold yet respectful, to be clear and concise, and to always point people to Jesus Christ as the source of hope and salvation. One of the most interesting things about the book of Acts is how it ends. Unlike many other books in the Bible, Acts doesn't have a neat and tidy conclusion. Instead, it leaves us hanging, with Paul under house arrest in Rome, awaiting trial before Caesar. We never find out what happened to Paul after that. Did he stand trial before Caesar? Was he released? Did he ever make it to Spain, as he had hoped? The book of Acts doesn't tell us. By ending the book this way, Luke reminds us that the story isn't over. The story of the gospel, the story of the church, is still being written today. The open-ended nature of Acts is a call to action, an invitation to join the ranks of those who have gone before us, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. So there you have it, 10 things you might not have known about the book of Acts. From its authorship and historical context to the role of the Holy Spirit and the significance of Pentecost, we've covered a lot of ground. The book of Acts is more than just a history book. It's a guidebook for the Christian life, a source of inspiration, and a reminder that God is still at work in the world today. I encourage you to dive into the book of Acts for yourselves and discover the treasures it holds. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to my channel for more videos on the Bible and Christian living.